course, the second I want to start filming, he wants to start chewing on his bone, and I just don't have the heart to take it away from him. So I hope it's not too loud. Hopefully post-editing I can do something. Anyway, welcome back. This video is something that I had the outline for a while ago, before my accident and everything, and I was looking through all my outlines, trying to get my head back in the game, figure out what video topic I wanted to cover next, try to start, getting back to making videos, getting back in the groove, all that good stuff. And I came across this outline and thought, hey, this is something that I can do. It won't take me very long. It's, just a quick little video. We can have a quick little chat. And I thought that we would talk about anxiety because I feel like my entire young adult life, from about the time that I was 11 or 12, I would say would be the first time that I cognitively remember picking up on it, but I'm sure it was earlier than that. I feel that I have either had pressure being put on me or I have put a lot of pressure on myself, and that has transformed, as is so often the case, into anxiety. And so I've always dealt with it to some extent or the other. Being the oldest kid in a really big family, being the oldest girl, I feel like there's just a lot of stuff that comes along with it, and you end up having to deal with some things. And I don't think that I'm alone in saying that I have dealt with anxiety. I know it's a very common phenomenon, especially in today's day and age. Everybody's anxious, everybody's on edge, and there's so much that you can do to mitigate that. And I guess I just want to talk about my experience with anxiety. I will say though that when I originally wrote out this outline and everything, my concept of anxiety was significantly different than it is now. I would say that before, my concept of anxiety was much more related to garden variety issues. And I think of that scene in Split where the psychologist is talking to the main character, Crumb, and he said, no, just garden variety issues. I don't know why that popped into my head, but it was just like, oh, work stress, or oh, I wasn't making enough videos, or I wasn't satisfied with X, Y, and Z, or I had a breakout, or whatever, things that were significant to me at the time, looking back now, are not as significant. And that just goes to show how having an experience, living through more life, can really change your perspective and how you view things. And I should go on record here and say, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist or anything like that. All I'm doing is sharing my opinion and perspective on anxiety and things that I have done to help mitigate that. Take everything I say with a grain of salt, I guess. But so, everybody's anxiety is different. I would definitely say though that before all of this, mine was brought on by a lot of unrealistic expectations, either expectations that were put on me by other people or expectations that I put on myself. Of course, now on the other side of my accident and everything, anxiety means something a little bit different. It's a lot more tangible, a lot more real, and I can trace it back to something very specific, obviously my attack and everything. And I guess it's just a different flavor of the same thing. It's something that I've been talking to my therapist a lot, because anxiety and the need to control things and, panic type symptoms are something that I can trace throughout my young adult life, and it's something that I want to be aware of. I have always taken an immense satisfaction out of being really good at things and being really, really productive and getting things done, and that's good, and you should, take pride in what you do. But the flip side of that is you can put too much pressure on yourself, and I can definitely see that in myself now as I'm healing. I want to snap back and get back to doing everything that I was doing before, get back to the same level of physical fitness that I was at, be able to form words and be able to just talk without having difficulty. It can kind of go overboard, I guess. It can be a good thing, but it can kind of kick into overdrive, and then you get too much of a good thing, and then it's not so good anymore. So what I would use to try to do is I would try to cram everything that I wanted to do into a single 12-hour day, and even a longer day on the days when I would work a 12-hour shift and then be trying to do things in my free time on the side. And the end result was that I was stressed out, anxious, tired, and the people around me, aka Stuart, would be annoyed because I was putting so much pressure on myself and wearing myself out for really no reason at all, other than I needed to do this. And don't know exactly where that need comes from. Again, I think it just traces back to, the whole performance thing and, wanting to be the best and needing to outshine and needing to be on top and needing to, just perform. That need to perform. Of course, when you do that to yourself, when you try to force yourself to keep up, the end result is that things go wrong, they don't go as planned. I mean, that just happens in life in general. The best made plans are only so good up to a point, and you can't plan for every single contingency. So of course, things go wrong or things just don't get done, and I would really beat myself up about that. I still do, and that's something that I find myself dealing with, especially now, given that I'm not capable of doing everything that I used to be able to do. I will at some point get back to that point, but as of right now, I'm not. And being able to accept that and not work myself into a froth over it is really, really difficult. And that's been my biggest struggle, I think, with anxiety, and what has contributed to my anxiety the most, if that makes sense. That need to always be going, which, thinking about it, is, obviously such a trigger for anxiety, but it's like, I need to be going. I know it's contributing to my anxiety, but I can't stop. It's like a weird obsessive compulsive type of thing. Obviously results in me being unhappy and dissatisfied, and a lot of the time it makes me feel like I'm stuck on some kind of ride that I can't get off of. And obviously my options are either to try to cram everything in and get it done, or accept that I can't do everything and just let some things go. And obviously the path of least resistance would be to just let everything go and, be okay with the fact that you can't do everything. Like, none of us can do everything we want to do. We're not superhuman. That would be the obvious course of action, but in my sick, twisted little brain, that doesn't even seem like a realistic option. Like, that's something that I can't let myself do, which really sucks, and that's been something that I've been working on a lot. Like, the acceptance of the fact that I cannot do everything, and there's no reason for me to have to do everything. Everything will get done in the time and manner that it's supposed to, and that is the most important thing. And the most important thing above all of that is my own mental health and my relationships with the people around me, which you have to acknowledge can become strained if you are placing all this pressure on yourself. It's going to naturally bleed into your relationships with other people and place pressure on them that they don't deserve. Nobody deserves that. This leads us to, okay, so what do you do about all of this? And there's been a few things that have been really, really helpful to me, and I'll start with like the most mild, easy to access for everybody. Mindfulness has been huge for me. Being able to recognize when I'm being triggered, when I'm being set off, when I'm being sent into an anxious episode, and having the frame of mind to take a step back and kind of reassess what I'm doing. A technique that I have used in the past that I found really useful when that anxious tendency starts to bleed more into panic is to kind of take stock of my surroundings. Really observe everything that's around me, from the smallest blade of grass on the ground to, a car passing outside, the make and the model of the car, the color of pen that is sitting on my desk, how many items are spread out in front of me, whatever. Getting very, very specific. Doing that kind of, for me, interrupts that train of thought and allows me to take a break and then come back into it a little bit refreshed. And that's been really, really helpful. So mindfulness has been huge. In addition to that, yoga and meditation, which doesn't work for everybody, and I acknowledge that, but some sort of physical and mental exercise I think is great for everybody. I think there's plenty of studies and research to support that, but yoga and meditation and even working out in the gym are huge because obviously you get that endorphin release. And then also, something about meditation that is so incredibly helpful is that it forces you to become the observer of your own thoughts. It's not that you're trying to stop yourself from thinking, because that is literally impossible and you will just become frustrated trying to do that. But you can kind of take a step back again and just let things flow, let things come and go. And that can be really difficult and take a lot of practice to get to where you can do it effectively, which is why guided meditations and that kind of thing are something that I rely on a lot. Because I'm by no means a meditation pro, and that really, really helps. Talking, I talk to Stuart a ton. He's the first person I want to talk to whenever something goes wrong or I'm feeling unhappy or whatever. And we've gotten really good with communication and being able to be honest and like bring something up the second that it starts to bother us, or just talk things out. And everybody needs somebody like that. It might not be an intimate partner for you, it might be a parent or a friend or whatever, but we all need somebody that we can talk to that isn't necessarily there to offer us advice and fix the problem for us, but just to lend us an ear and take in what we're saying and listen. That's hugely valuable and has been really, really helpful. On the same scale, but perhaps slightly not more serious but more technical, is of course therapy. And I'm thankful that I live in a day and age where more and more people are becoming accepting and gracious and supportive of therapy and mental health coaching and all of that stuff. That wasn't the case really not so long ago, and in certain areas of the country, in certain communities and peoples, it's still not a popular thing to turn to, but luckily it's gaining in popularity and people are becoming more accepting of it, and I'm really thankful for that because therapy is absolutely wonderful. It's important to find somebody that you can work with well. The first therapist that I ever went to, we didn't really gel all that well. Our personalities just didn't click. But the therapist that I'm seeing now is absolutely wonderful. And I feel like he really listens to what I have to say and gives me like tangible, useful advice, which is huge for me and how I process things and work through things. So if that's an option for you, and there are so many options out there, I highly recommend it, because it can be really, really helpful. And then also, and this is probably the last thing, is that when it comes to my anxiety, the things that trigger me, the things that set me off, so much of the time, it's not the big stuff that really should probably be giving me cause for concern. I don't really worry about big life stuff, which is so funny. It's almost like my anxiety is caused by little grains of sand that get blown into the cogs and gears in my brain and just start to lock things up. It's little insignificant stuff that shouldn't matter at all, but for whatever reason I fixate on it and it becomes important. And it's been very difficult, but it's something that I try to keep in mind all of the time. And again, all of the techniques and practices that I mentioned before are helpful with this, but it's recognizing that ultimately the things that we stress about and worry about really and truly do not matter. And that's so difficult to accept and really integrate into your being when so much of who you are is wrapped up in worrying about those things. It can be very difficult to step back and get some frame of mind and just let it go. It can be really difficult, and I recognize that 100%, but it is so vitally important to recognize that so much of the stuff that we worry about does not matter. It is beyond unimportant. At the end of the day, it's just a bunch of garbage that is holding us back and holding us down, and we don't need it. Now, how you get to that frame of mind and how you gain that perspective is going to be different for everybody. All of the things that I mentioned that I do help with that, but again, there's so many different things that you can do, and it's going to vary for everybody because not everybody has the same brand of anxiety.
Hey guys, this is me editing and realizing that for some reason, out of all the things that I mentioned, I forgot to mention medication, which is of course a excellent option and not one that you should be afraid of considering, especially if you have really bad anxiety. I myself have taken medication in the past and have felt that it helped me. I don't know why I didn't mention this while I was filming. For whatever reason, it just didn't occur to me, but I definitely want to make sure I throw that in here because it is important and it can help a lot of people, and you shouldn't be afraid of medication because if you need it, it can do a whole lot more help than it can harm.
But I think it's important to be able to recognize when you're having trouble dealing with things or when things are bothering you. I think, one perhaps huge contributor to anxiety for a lot of people is this idea that we have to act like everything is fine. We have to act like we're on top of the world. We're keeping up with the Joneses, or I suppose in this day and age, we're keeping up with the Kardashians. It doesn't matter, but that is the pressure that we put on ourselves. But in that effort to keep up, again, it's so fake and it's so unnecessary and it's so pointless. Our society may put certain pressures on us for certain things, but at the end of the day, the one maintaining those pressures and continuing that cycle is ourself. So ultimately it lies within us to recognize that and take a step back and let it go. And you know, there's so many changes that you can make in your lifestyle and within your home to get to that point and to work towards that goal. And I could spend so much time talking about all of those things, but even just as an example, what Stuart and I are doing with the travel trailer and breaking out of the kind of conventional mold and doing something a little bit different, even though it's going to be financially advantageous for us and give us a lot of freedom, it's also simplifying our life. When you clear things out and you clear the air, so to speak, of complications and pressures and junk, you know, you give yourself room to move and to breathe and to relax. And the things that you worry about and the things that you stress about become so much less important because you are away from them. You gave yourself space from them. And I guess that's the point that I'm trying to make in a very, perhaps not the best worded and very rambly manner. Hopefully some of that made sense. At the end of it all, the one thing I want to make sure that I drive home, it takes a lot of time and patience and effort to go into yourself and examine your own triggers and the reasons behind why you are the way that you are and why the things that set you off the way that they do, and on and on and on. So it's not a one-size-fits-all phenomenon. And I think that it's important to recognize that, because I think sometimes people will try to tell you that there's a quick fix solution to your problem, and it's usually not that simple. It would be nice if it was, but it just isn't. That's not how life works. There is no one remedy for everyone's problem. If that were the case, the world would be perfect and we would have no reason to have conversations like this. There would not be so many people dealing with this issue. That is a little bit about my anxiety, the things that set me off, the things that trigger me, how I deal with them, blah, blah, blah. If you have a specific technique or something that you do that has been hugely helpful to you, leave it down in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. We can kind of crowdsource and create ways to help everybody deal. I mean, creating a community of positive and supportive people is another great way to kind of deal with these things and recognize that they're not so bad after all. It's not the end of the world and everything is going to be okay. That is pretty much it for this video. If you made it this far, thank you so much. As you can probably tell, I have a little bit of trouble forming certain words. I know that my speech isn't as clear as it used to be, and that's just because my upper lip and the muscles and everything are still reconnecting and learning to work together and everything. Everything got severed, and you know, the nerves and everything have to relearn their pathways. So thank you for your patience and understanding in that. It's all a work in progress. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, if you found it significant. Maybe share it with somebody if you think somebody would benefit from seeing it. And don't forget to subscribe. I appreciate every single one of you who's been subscribing and commenting on my videos and everything. It's absolutely wonderful, and I really, really appreciate it, so thank you. And I will see you again soon for the next video, whenever and wherever that will be. Bye, guys.